Okay, I've been reading some Republic by Plato, mostly because I'm trying to think about his idea of government and the ideas of order and what comes into play in Plato's political philosophy. It would be, or in a lot of Plato and in a lot of his dialogues for that matter would be justice. It's kind of sort of happens that in these dialogues, that there's all these virtues that are kind of discussed, and Socrates kind of tries to figure out what these meanings of these virtues are, like justice, courage, wisdom, patience, all of these. And but I want to think about this idea of justice here, just because I think it's important to think about. I want to first of all, I want to think about what is going on here. I want to think about the first, at least a few of the ones that come into play in Book 4 of the Republic. So, one of the first ones that would come about in the fourth book of the Republic would be the one that comes along from Kephalus, I believe, um, which is that justice means to give back things that you borrow, and forget what else. Um, it's I'm looking for it here. Sorry to have it on my iPad, but that first one had to do with giving back things that you borrow and stuff like that. But I forget what the entire discussion was there. And Socrates kind of picks that apart. What he tends to do in these dialogues, he tends to hear a certain explanation for something and tends to pick it apart, and it's like a big huge dialogue. And then another one might be to render to each what is due. That's one, the idea of render, and then Socrates charged that definition of justice with being unclear, and then it was figured out as give to the people who are good, or treat people who are give to people who are good, good treatment, and give to our enemies bad treatment. That's a not a very good way of discussing that, but that's pretty much how that was explained. This idea of to render each what is due is to people who do good get good treatment, and to our enemies who do bad treatment. And then what was charge of that by Socrates was that you can't get justice from injustice, or you can't get something that is just out of injustice, and treating the enemies badly would be that supposed injustice. But I guess what I'm thinking about here is I want to discuss this what Plato, or Socrates, the one who's talking, figures out what's this is his definition of justice. So I'm just going to read this here, and this is with the interlocutor. I grow impatient at the length of your exordium. Well, then tell me, I said, whether I am right or not. You remember the original principle which we were always laying down at the foundation of the state, that one man should practice one thing only, the thing to which his nature was best adapted. Now, justice is this principle, or a part of it. So, what this essentially boils down to is that it's minding your own business, doing the job of your nature. Yes, we often said that one man should do one thing only. Further, we affirmed that justice was doing one's own business and not being a busybody. We said so again and again, and many others have said the same to us. And this kind of comes down to, like, I guess, in Platonic dialogues, you'll hear about, like, a shoemaker makes shoes, or a cobbler does this, a shoemaker does this, a carpenter does this thing. Each person who has this certain nature does this one thing. So that's one thing that you'll see kind of relatively often. That's not too uncommon to see. Oh, this person, carpenters do this. A statesman does this, and so on. Then, to do one's business in a certain way may be assumed to be justice. Can you tell me whence I derive this inference? I cannot, but I should like to be told, because I think that this is the only virtue which remains in the state, which, when the other virtues of temperance and courage and wisdom are abstracted, and that this is the ultimate cause and condition of the existence of all of them, and while remaining in them is also their preservative. And we were saying that if the three were discovered by us, justice would be the fourth or remaining one. Because I think that this is the only virtue which remains in the state when the other virtues of temperance and courage and wisdom are abstracted. So, temperance, for once, is like not being gluttonous, not being greedy, being temperate. Alcoholics are not temperate. People who eat too much are not temperate. Courage and wisdom are obvious ones. So I think he says that when virtues of temperance and courage and wisdom are abstracted, justice is what is left, and that this is the ultimate cause and condition of the existence of all of them, and while remaining in them is also their preservative. We were saying that if the three were discovered by us, justice would be the fourth or remaining one. Okay. That is, I want to think about those three: temperance, wisdom, and courage, and how justice would be primary to those. I guess what I'm trying to think about is I'm trying to argue against this point of that justice is man doing his own business, doing what his nature is. The carpenter being only a carpenter and such. That's kind of what this is being. That's what Plato's definition of justice really is. Not being a busybody, minding your own business, doing what your nature is. And then what is being said here is that justice is primary to temperance, courage, and wisdom. And I don't think that it's arguable that justice is on an equal footing as temperance, courage, and wisdom. I think that justice is actually superior to them and primary to those. But what I think is not exactly correct here is this idea that man doing his own business, carpenter doing carpentry, a cobbler doing his own work, only minding his own business, not being a busybody. I think that this definition of justice is kind of flawed. Actually, I think there's something kind of wrong with that. First of all, that makes me think of like Futurama almost, like when Fry got out of that chamber where he was frozen for a long time, like about 1,000 years. He came out, and then Leela was trying to put his career chip in him because it was figured out by this test or whatsoever that he is to be a delivery boy. And I think you'll find that in things like other communists, like certain communist societies, that each person has this certain job and you have to do this. It's certain like a communist kind of idea, is that you have this one job and you have to do it by the government. It's not freedom by any means. But I mean, just because a man has one certain nature, doesn't mean that he needs to be doing that. I guess I think even though even though like let's say I'm a shoemaker and my nature is to make shoes. Um, let's say I maybe let's say that maybe I'm really good at it. That's my nature. Maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I'm great at that. Maybe I'm the best shoemaker ever, but maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't want to. So, maybe I want to be a statesman or a politician instead. But then I think that having a person having I think that it's flawed because a person having a nature of having just one thing that they're going to do is kind of flawed because the idea of being a busybody, I don't understand what's wrong with that. I guess to be a busybody, I guess, would be to have your hand in a lot of different things, to be involved in lots of different things, or to be, or I guess the negative definition would be to be in so many things that you can't really even keep track. But I think that this idea of justice kind of does put a damper of freedom a little bit, even if a person's nature is what they're doing. A person's nature is what they're doing with their life, whether it be five things or one. I still think that this is not a adequate definition of justice. It can be argued whether or not that this is contradictory to freedom. I think it is a little bit, but that can be argued differently. But either way, I think that this is a inadequate definition of justice. I would like to go back to the one that says render to every person render to each person what is due to them. And I think this is not a very, it's kind of a ambiguous idea. It isn't very clear. And in the dialogue, it was more clearly defined as good people get this thing, bad people get this thing. But if it was more clearly defined, as to render to each person what is due, without it being immediately assumed that to our enemies that we're going to treat badly, I think that's immediately assumed, in that. But I think that render to each person what is due to them is a better definition, as long as it's more defined. I guess it's made less vague. I guess that's my real argument here. I guess what do you think? I guess if you've read these definitions of justice and such, what are your ideas about this? What do you think about the various ideas of justice that are discussed in the dialogues? Not just the Republic, but the other ones too, because there are various discussions of justice, here and there. So yeah, I'm curious if you think I'm crazy about that, or if you think that there's something to Plato's definition. Yeah, and also I don't think that if that is the real definition of justice, if that is the real definition of justice, I do not think that can be superior to temperance, wisdom, and courage. So yeah, I'm curious. What do you think about that? This is very interesting, especially if you've read this dialogue. So yeah, read book 4. There's lots of really good stuff in there. So yeah, let me know what you think, and I'm willing to discuss various things always.